Good morning, everyone. Microphone check, screen check. Looks like everything is working correctly here. Yep, wonderful. All right. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Hopefully everyone is able to rest up, get ready for the day ahead and all that fun stuff. As always, before we jump on the left side of the screen there, make sure to read through the live trader morning prep PDF. Very important to go through and understand everything that's inside there. All right. Excuse me. I just wanted to give a quick shout out real quick to our latest members that joined overnight. Thank you so much for the support. I'm pumped to have you on the YouTube family as well as the VIP family. So welcome aboard there. If you aren't a member of SSFTG or a part of the YouTube family, check out the join button below the stream or more information on SSFTG. And that way you can gain access before our next private webinar, gain access to the SSFTG Discord chat, not to mention the awesome badge next to your YouTube name and a boatload of the other cool stuff. If you're trying to figure out what it is exactly that we are doing here in the room, look no further than the Day Trading Academy over on SSFTG. Comes with about 19 plus hours or so, of course, materials loaded with you in that collection, loaded for you rather, and that collection continues to grow. And that's not to mention everything else on YouTube and all the other videos. Please keep in mind, speaking of which, that the YouTube broadcast does have between a 3 and a 30-second delay, depending on where you're logging in from. But if you wanted to level up to the VIP status, you can enjoy the exclusive permanent access to our non-delayed live analysis stream via Zoom Direct meetings, as well as monthly VIP webinars, which there's one coming up this weekend, private VIP events, one-on-one scheduling access, all kinds of cool stuff. So whether you're here and you're totally new, or you're a veteran over on the VIP stream, welcome. I'm glad to have you here with me today. So let's take a look at some news for today's. Take a look at some charts, see what's going on or not going on if things aren't moving. Get that out of the way. Don't forget to grab the morning DP levels. Those are posted for you this morning for all of the major markets that we take a look at. And then along with that, we also want to double check the news and see what's going on that front. I don't know what happened to my news calendar. Let me pop up a new one. The past few days have been abysmal for news, but today it's Wednesday, so we have crude oil inventories. The forecast of that's negative 2.975 million. That's the only news announcement. So still very, very light on that side of things. Now, the crude oil inventory is forecasted negative 2.975. If you look at yesterday, the API report came out at a build of 0.436. Little bit of a disconnect, right? It's not huge. Like a positive 0.4 is not massive, but they're expecting a negative 2.9, and we're already showing signs that that's probably not going to happen. So more likely than not, a lot of traders are expecting this number to be closer to 0 if it is negative, but not negative by much, and maybe even possibly positive. Much further outside of that range, and it might shake things up a little bit. That's all there is, though. News is really, really quiet. Get that out of the way. Start off on the NASDAQ, taking a look at what's going on here, and I won't spend too much time on the NASDAQ because we'll look at it on the other screen, but we do have a nice bear channel working its way lower, nice descending wedge, and it looked like a possible avalanche wedge, but preferably those happen off of the top, so not perfect by any means. We do have a very obvious diverging low coming across the bottom, and that's even narrower on there as well, showing multiple levels of that divergence. That said, this cycle's pretty vicious. I mean, we just had this giant pullback, which trapped out a new low, ripped all the way back up to a new high, trapped the highs, and then rolled all the way down again. I mean, both sides are getting beat up pretty bad here. What we really want to see is where is the story? Who's still in? Who's out? What's happening? So originally, we had this big, strong drive to the upside. So let's start there. We've got a really strong rally to the upside. Let me narrow this back a little bit. Why isn't it going up there? What? It won't put it on the top. What if I go over here? Then it does. Okay. So this whole day is bugged. That's going to make it a little bit awkward because I don't know how the volume formed. There's not really much I can do about that, but Okay, well, as it stands, we had the assumption, at least, is that there was a majority of volume that came in down here and the market rallied up. We saw decreasing volume, so likely this volume was buyers. Their average point of interest was right there around 13,800s, and it appears as though they took profit as it started breaking into the 920s. Started going a little bit further, they took a bit more profit, go a little further, take some profit, go further, take some profit, but then they really took some pretty significant profit as the market was driving to the upside because it dried up quick. That would be a suggestion rather that the buyers have potentially given up a lot of their share, and if it starts pulling down, that could cause some problems. What we want to see is where does it pull down to and where is it defended? Pulls right back down to the POC and it's defended and pushes the market back up. So these buyers are still in and the market goes raging back to the upside. That's their objective. So if we bring this volume forward, let's see if it follows through with that story. All right, POC shifts to the upside. We've got this big rotation, goes back up. We see accumulation volume now. Things have shifted a little bit, but above, we're still seeing a bit of profit taking. So, again, we're seeing a lot of traders who are potentially trying to exit out of this. But the volume node is right here. And this is also a potential completion of this leg down. So I kind of want to see, where were these sellers, right? Before this move reversed back up, where were they kind of taken off guard? They were taken off guard right there. That was their POC. So I want to see, how does that POC go forward? If these are shorts and they're looking for a continuation down, and I mean, let's be real, who can really argue with them? You'd expect that move down comes back, right? You can visually see what they're trying to do, at least rotate it into a range, but it just ripped right through it. So the fact that it ripped right through it, a lot of shorts are potentially stuck here. It's very obvious that a lot of stops were hit right there given the VVP. But as the market rotates back up, we really want to pay attention to how does the market respond to this, right? We know that they're potentially stuck off the bottom, but let's go from the bottom to top and see if that gives us, oh, that's right, I can't do that day. Got to go a little after. See how that kind of lines up. So you can see where they built that volume in down there. The POC cluster is kind of back in the middle. And when the market came back, it just skipped right over it. They built a decent amount of volume ahead of it, but when it came time to actually defend it, nobody showed up to the party. That's a really big clue. The market goes screaming away. Now, originally you'd be thinking, okay, well, the shorts just switched to buyers. Buyers are trying to get this move going back to the upside. But then they top weight the POC. And, okay, well, if they're top weighting the POC, where is it? Let's go backward. Accumulation volume. We were at the highs. Let's see what happens with this volume. We know that the market would likely want to come back down to this low at around 899. It did, in hindsight. But, again, we're building a story. If we go a little bit further forward, POC shifts up, but still relatively high weighted, and it's not really going crazy, still demonstrating accumulation volume. So shorts are still likely short. They haven't gotten out. Let's keep going a little further forward. More accumulation volume. POC still rests high. We go through the weekend. Gaps down through the weekend, pulls higher. On Sunday, POC stays the same. They do not exit. There's no break above the highs. Rotates back down. Let's see what happened to the POC. The POC is right there, and right there is the telltale sign. Right, that's the final nail in the coffin. They gave it up, they came back and tapped it, and it was done. Yes. Everyone who was long, trying to get that thing to go higher, they gave up. And they didn't give up in a small way. That thing collapsed all the way down to the lows where we are now. So we've got this massive cycle to the downside that's also potentially looking for a two-legged move. But the way that it happened is important because that derives more of a story. When the market slid back down, they did find a bounce off of that POC, but eventually kind of chopped back through it again. And unsurprisingly, they went back down to the next big volume node. Who would have thought, right? Buyers tried getting it to rotate back up. They tried again, and they failed. And you can see that lower high was kind of the secondary nail in the coffin. Game over. Continues to roll back down. So now that we've broken back through this 900 area, we can see how the market responded to that zone, right? It went underneath it. Tried doing something with it, held as a bit of resistance, tried breaking above it, holding as support, finally breaks back down. And what do? They make a new low. That is kind of like the final, like, hey, we got it, right? So when it came back, where was their response? Their response was right at that volume cluster. And they rejected back off again. It's the same thing that they did up here. They did it again. And it rotated back down. So we're seeing more continuation of this story. We know that these shorts were short. They built up a little bit further. Now they're continuing to ride it back to the downside. So shorts are still short. If we go all the way back now, and we go down to the larger low and go forward, see if that gives us a little bit more context. Actually, let's go before, because that was a lower high. There we go. All right, so here we can see an even cleaner picture. The massive volume node is at 785. You see some problems here? This doesn't give me the warm fuzzies, you know what I mean? Like, this could potentially cause some serious problems. Yeah, it's low, and there's definitive divergence at the bottom, and there's some, but, oh man, that doesn't make me super pumped, you know? That makes me a little bit concerned that the buyers are potentially giving up a little bit, especially if it starts rotating down. So this is a big spot. It may not feel like it right now, but this is a really big zone. Same thing goes for the S&P, although the wedge is a bit more pronounced. We broke above the wedge, retested. We're trying to get a higher low going on. As far as the volume goes, from the top all the way down to the bottom. That's right, I can't use that day. Thanks, Ninja. Go a little further forward. There we go. Their point of interest was 41.57. Again, utilize common sense here and see what they were trying to do. You could easily see those are buyers trying to get this thing to roll back up. I mean, this is a deeper leg. It's a continuation move. They got dumpstered, right? So when they got slammed on, the market rotated back down, and we've got a very strong breakdown point. Couldn't even allow them out at break even. By the way, that still is a big point of interest if it does come back. But now we're creating a secondary distribution node where the longs were here. Now they're trying to buy down here and create an average point. Where's their average going to be? Somewhere right about in the middle. We have a VVP, which looks like a really nice spot to kind of backfill. And if we look at the POC cluster, the secondary POC cluster, now we've got a third and maybe even fourth down here. You can see their average is right about in the middle, give or take. I don't think they've been given that break-even opportunity yet. Over on gold, more continuation to the upside. The MAC whack did show up. We had that initial selling pressure, and then it rolled all the way back up. This dip back down, opportunity to get out of break even. That's the opportunity that I took, at least. Looked to try to roll it back over. Couldn't get the job done. I exited. It looks like everybody else on the planet exited as well, because that was the bottom, and it rolled all the way back up again. So it tried getting it going, but it couldn't get the job done. And, well, now that's a big clue, because now look where we are. If we follow this through, I'm kind of curious to see if they didn't hold as resistance. Now we have a potential support. Higher lows. I mean, you can almost feel that little trap underneath that 75. There's so many stops waiting under there. Almost a guarantee. Juicy. We'll see if they want to come back. Over on crude, more continuation to the downside. Again, this massive diverging top, the undertow at the highs gave us a clue that a deeper pullback was coming. I wasn't expecting it to happen in 3 candles, but there you go. Deeper pullback all the way down to the L2. Buyers still gave it a shot. I mean, I got to give them credit. They tried, but it wasn't enough. The bear move is just too strong. We see it roll back over, and the sellers overcome. Now, the big thing that we have here is this is starting to qualify a potential for another MAC whack. The last one on gold didn't work, but crude oil's got some potential. We've got a huge undertow diverging high all the way, and now with a big drive to the downside. A nice little retest back in, get that little tap on the highs, get some resistance back at settlement, and see this thing just dive bomb all the way back lower towards 60, maybe 59. Be a great spot. Looking decent, and it's trying to break lower. We know that buyers have just got steamrolled on the L2. Next spot's going to be the L3, which is right about where we are now. Over on the euro, we are at the bottom of the channel. This is a zone of interest for more of a shorter term swing zone of interest. And the main reason why it's a shorter term is because this primarily comes off of the highs, and it gives a potential low. You can see they're definitively fighting over it, but we don't really have proof of a bottom yet. If we put in the volume from top to bottom, at least, we do have a POC shift low. So 1.2021, that's their average that they're trying to get going to the long side. We can see accumulation volume, so we know that most, we'll just say funds is an example, the infinite money crew, they're long at around 20-210. 210. So that's going to be the zone that we really want to keep an eye on. But the market's pulling back. Why would it be pulling back? Is it trying to fill an objective from before? Let's go backward a little bit, right? Here's the POC. If the shorts were short, they didn't really do a whole lot above this, and now we can see a very obvious volume breakdown here with proof. Oof. We're starting to build some problems here. Let's go a little bit further back and include some of these previous ranges and go to the start of that big move and see if that gives us a little bit more info. Where could the market potentially want to pull back to? Well, right now it looks like they're filling in the VVP. They're not done filling in the VVP. But if they do want to pull back further, what likely spot do you think they might want to come back to? What likely spot do you think they'll want to come back? It's at 1.198. It's a huge zone. Coming back to a major psychological area of interest. Previous shorts that were potentially short. We know that there was a little bit of profit taking, but they built some good volume up here. If they are short and they want to come back, that's their spot right there. If they want to go a little bit lower and overblow it because, maybe the euro wants to take a note from the NASDAQ, pretty obvious VVP zone that they'd want to backfill on some of these previous swings, just a bit lower around the 19,620s. Huge zone of interest down here on the euro if it can follow through a bit more. We can see buyers are trying. They're trying to get it going off the lows of the channel. The volume's supporting that notion. If we see further continuation up, a break back above 210, a trap, something like that, showing more support off 210, then we'll probably get a bounce off the channel lows. But it's not optimal. I would like it to go a bit further. Bitcoin's still stuck in a wedge. There's nothing going on here. This thing is just dead quiet. Not a thing. One thing that does stand out, if we're looking at the MACD, we do have kind of a micro double top-ish. If you put the line directly on top of it, you can see that it did technically make a higher high. I mean, this is super nitpicky stuff here. But realistically, this is a very obvious lower high. And the fact that it would have, we could even say double top, gives us a clue that the buyers are at least trying on the undertow. They're trying to get this to push up. And the amount of support that we're seeing come off the lows, it supports that. There's a lot of defense down here in the 54,600s, 620s. I don't want to draw the volume on here because Lord knows that's going to crash my chart, but that's going to be the zone of interest. As far as Ethereum goes, Ethereum continuing to churn back to the upside, looking for the megaphone top, just a little bit further to go, around the 2391s. Right around that area. Very nice continuation of the upside. My 56.5 short worked. Awesome. Yes, sir. And again, we're kind of seeing what we were talking about yesterday as well, where, Bitcoin is, it's not that it's lost its favor. There's nothing wrong with Bitcoin. In fact, if anything, Bitcoin's in a healthier state than it ever has been. But it's just not going higher, and that's because it's kind of being regarded as the less interesting of the bunch. Like everybody's got Bitcoin now. Your grandparents have Bitcoin. Oh, congrats. It's kind of like gold now, in a sense, on this new generation. So everybody's looking for like, okay, yeah, you got Bitcoin, you got Ethereum, maybe you got some Litecoin or Bcash or something like that. But Bitcoin's kind of the one that everyone's already got. Nobody's necessarily a new buyer coming into Bitcoin, or if they are, super late to the party. So, I mean, it's something to consider. It's beginning to look a lot like alt season. I don't know. We'll see. And alt season is, a lot of times nothing more than Bitcoin falling and all of its inverse pairs. Bitcoin versus Cardano, Bitcoin versus BNB, Bitcoin versus Doge. All these other kind of correlated pairs go up, right? Because their counterpart is Bitcoin. So if Bitcoin's going down, they go up. Altcoin season. Looking at the daily on the NASDAQ, we still got about 9 minutes until the open. The daily is cycling back. We did have an L1 bounce. That L1 bounce was there. So if we look at that area, that was at about 735. So if we look yesterday at around 735, right there. coincidentally where all of those orders started to come in. Weird. Anyway, this is where you expect to see a lot of support. There's diverging lows. There's a lot of demonstration that buyers are defending this. And here again, you can see coming into the U.S. session, we're right there. We're in the same spot. Nothing's changed. So, I mean, yeah, this might still be accumulation from yesterday. So if we look at yesterday from the top all the way down, obviously we're going to have a jumbo amount of volume down here. It spent a lot of time. But the overall POC we can see is, oh, come on, 750, really? Man, this level at 750 haunts me. This thing just keeps coming back over and over and over again. It's like a bad rash. Go away. The POC so far is at 750 on this move down. I don't think I have to say it, but it's pretty obvious accumulation so far. And that adds a lot of context to this 750 because buyers want to see this go up, right? They're trying to accumulate this move. We see that very obviously in volume. So they want this to go higher. Falling resistance might be in the way. You can see we're still kind of stuck in this wedge. We're not really going anywhere yet. We're still in this accumulation phase. A quick dip down doesn't necessarily invalidate them. In fact, if anything, it might give them an opportunity to lower their average, especially if it responds quickly and goes back up. But where the POC is going to be pretty important over the multi-day. Might be better to operate this on the 15 on this drive down. That way it doesn't dominate so much of the chart. Jeez, look at that. It's blatantly obvious, isn't it? So let's put this as the opacity to 10, 20. As far as what we've seen so far going into the U.S. session, the market has done a whole lot of nothing. The Asian session did have a full one deviation down, almost to the tick. Missed it by... Actually, they might have hit it by a tick, whatever. Then it ended up rolling back up again. European session, we have a full diverging move back to the upside as well. A 1-to-1 move up before it went into the Euro session. The Euro session is now attempted to break higher and failed. Looks like they made it to about an L2 and then failed down. And now we've got a rotation back down where we've got the half deviation lower. We know all the support that's coming in here, and we've seen a lot of these half deviations holding. And here again, we've got the Asian session and the Euro session, which are not diverging very much. And typically when we see that, you expect to see a reversal and for it to hang around, and if it doesn't, a big dump, which is what happened yesterday. If we go back before this, that one went up. Here's the Asian session, Euro session rolled up, went down to a new low. So they didn't fail to go down and then ended up going sideways for the rest of the day. Generally speaking, it stays on the side of the Euro session that it was in the beginning. So the fact that it was up and then came down would suggest that it would stay above. If we go back before that, that one doesn't qualify. Here's another one. We have this move here, Asian session, European session tried to break up, went about half. You can see that pretty obviously. Rolled all the way down to a new low, but couldn't get back into the Asian session. And then failed lower. So it's very important to see what side does it spend the majority of time on when it comes back. That's going to be the big giveaway, it seems, when the Asian and Euro session overlap. Right now, you can kind of see it, can't you? This doesn't look very happy to the bull side. I don't know. After looking at what we just looked at, Asian session with the Euro session higher, failed move above, and now they're rolling down, trying to stay underneath Euro lows. Oof. Ooh, lordy, that looks dangerous. There's so much support here, though. Wow, man, talk about awkward. 5 minutes until the open. We'll see. But definitely a weird spot here. I'm wondering if alt season's going to end the crypto market Bitcoin up move like 2017, or we just pause and go up more. That's going to be, I think, more the bigger clue than anything, too, because realistically, if this does pause the market as an example and then, you know, continue back up, that would be an extreme amount of bullish sentiment. But if it doesn't, there's a lot of clues that we can get either way, I guess. It's just a matter of how it wants to operate. Given the mass adoption, I mean, I feel like leaning more towards sideways is a safer bet. And here we sit. Market's not doing a whole lot so far, mostly range bound. 2.5 minutes to go until the open. Give me 1 second. All right. A little under a minute. Right around the corner. Hey, good morning, everyone. Welcome. Welcome to Wednesday. First day this week that we've got at least some news, I guess. Because the alt season marks the top, I don't see a reason in buying Bitcoin anymore. Just try to establish a short position, ride the monthly correction down. Oh, yeah. I would totally agree. I would rather be long other coins anyway. And I think that's why Bitcoin is seeing some pressure while the other markets are still going up. There's nothing wrong with Bitcoin, and a lot of the settlements in altcoins will happen in Bitcoin. So it's still a necessity, but at the same time, you know, and here it sits. Not really a whole lot going on. Even at the open. Not much movement. Still bouncing around this L1 in the bigger picture. That's where all of this massive swing support comes in. Remember, from a swing perspective, Longs are definitively in. There's no questioning that buyers are buying this dip right now, looking for a continuation to the upside. Massive day of potential long. BTFD, right? I mean, we can see the volume supporting it. The volume's at 750. Prices maintaining above 750 so far. It was below it for a little bit, so it'd be nice to see it go up a little bit first as proof. Let's get a little bit closer here and see what's going on in the faster. Seeing a potential failure, and the market is staying inside of the range on the bottom edge. Again, those are big clues. Lordy, lordy. Euro session lows is going to be a zone of interest. Oof, I tried hitting the bid, but that was just there and gone so fast. I didn't even have a chance. By the time I hit the bid, it was already at settlement. I canceled that one very quickly. But this dip is a great spot. Now we're cracking lower. Remember, these 750s, they still have 12 minutes on this candle, but this is going to be a big zone. Nice continuation, dip back to the downside. If we're looking at the top to bottom move, oof, yikes. That POC is up here. That's a problem. See what happens when they come back to 73. More sellers attempting to come in. Still staying predominantly above now the Euro session. 750s is going to be a pain all day. You can already tell. Nice little slide below that previous 5-minute bar on the ETH, though. And from the way that it looks, if they're able to close strong, that would demonstrate at least a bullish intention. That POC at the top makes it tough, though. Yikes. Still got a minute 20. Maybe they can change that. Ooh, that's a bit rough. How's the S&P looking? Equally like garbage. Where's the POC? Equally garbage. Awesome. Cool. 22 quarters. So all the POCs are above the market right now, including the 15-minute now at 750. The buyers who were potentially long at 13,773, they haven't had a chance to get back to that break-even point. If we expand a little bit further to add more to the story, we can see that they've adjusted their average down to 746 quarter. So if they were long above those highs, they've now had a chance to build in a bit more. But we got to wait and see what they want to do here. Nice bear bar back to the downside, and it's directly off of that 46 quarter. See what happens when they get back to 46 quarter. I'm kind of curious. Ooh. Well, that was a touchy area, huh? Sheesh. They're back. Yikes. 46 quarter is getting dumped on right now. The first 5 volume is in. We're past the first 5 minutes now. First 5 volume ends up on the NASDAQ at 13,760. What a spot. On the 5-minute, that ended up at 22 quarter. Not a whole lot of movement on the S&P. So far, at least. All right, price churning back above that volume node. Ooh, that's really good for the bulls. Now watch what happens if it comes back, because it might not. This is a strong move. If it comes back to that 45 area. We know that they shifted the POC down there. If we see that volume just get stacked at 45, it's likely that they're refilling for a continuation long. And that's usually the spark before the big ignite. Very intentively watching this 45. It's also right at settlement, too. Jeez. Nope. Ooh, well. Ooh, they're churning still. Now we're underneath it. Watch this 45. This is still a very important area. Sellers are hitting it really hard. I tried jumping into a short, but I couldn't get a fill. They rotated the volume now at 745, and sellers are taking over aggressively. I couldn't get a fill. It happened so fast. Golly, gee willikers, Batman. This thing's quick today. Nice little short flip-flop. Remember, we're still in a major zone of support, so, man, I don't really want to be a short down here. Much better to make sure that we've got some room. 745. What do they do when they hit it again? Do they hit it again? If they don't, that's an even bigger clue. A lot of volume kind of creeping up here at the 739s. They couldn't get the job done. Sellers on the more aggressive side will be looking to short underneath that bear bar on the 500 tick for continuation down. Again, I don't want to short way down here. There's way too much support. The only way that I'm going to short down here is if it breaks down through all of this. Then I'll short. but they're going to have to show me. S&P almost came back to the first 5 volume top. I'm sorry, the NASDAQ. The S&P did come back to the first 5 volume at 22.25. Held back down. Another bear bar to the downside. And this is the thing, right? They're forcing sellers to sell super low. So it either goes very quickly or it fails very quickly. It's one of those things where the decision is made fast. Good or bad. So shorts will be interested underneath these bear bars, but they're not going to be shorts that stick around for a long time if it doesn't go. And a bull bar back to the upside again. $745 is still a big zone of interest, but we've already seen that volume shift off of it. So we know that the bulls are nervous at the very least, if not already jumped ship. I just don't want to sell this far down. The S&P is almost at a bull engulfing candle now. From the crypto perspective, looking at what's going on, I mean, it's hard to not like the way that some of these look. I mean, seriously. On the 60-minute chart, EOS looks like it's building a phenomenal wedge. It just doesn't have a breakout yet. And that's going to be the case for a lot of these. We also have a beautiful amount of support coming in on Litecoin. Not quite a wedge, per se. I mean, I guess it could be now, but it needs more info. Either way, we still need to break a little bit further up. And that, like I said, that's the case for a lot of them. They're looking really good, but it still feels a bit early. It might need some time to mature. Yep. So again, this slide down is absolutely zero surprise whatsoever. Saw this coming from a mile away up at 745. The problem was I couldn't get filled. And I can't sell way at the bottom. It's not worth the risk. Bummer. I missed it. Nothing I could do. I mean, I tried. There's nothing I could do about it. Big push to the downside. So now we know that buyers are potentially stuck. Obviously, they got stopped underneath the lows. You can see the big stop run. The VVP demonstrates all of that. But if the market does want to pull back or we build a secondary support, you can see short-term accumulation taking place. They're trying, but more likely than anything, this is just the volume that absorbed that first stop run, and they try to get another move down. But, I mean, can't ignore what we're seeing. Pretty obvious accumulation volume, you know. Just let me click the arrow. Thank you. A literal perfect measured leg, which would explain why there's so much volume down here. Swing longs, again, are gobbling this thing up like it's going out of style. S&P does not complete that engulfing bull move to the upside, which adds a lot of potential bearish pressure off of that 22 quarter. If we look at the zoomed out perspective, just to ensure that we're in the right place, looking at the overall movement that we've got going on, we've got the earlier Asian session and we're hovering right at the base of it. The earlier 5-minute node, I don't know, it's just kind of, it feels like it's hovering in the middle of nowhere. So let's go back a little further and see if we can get a cleaner picture here. Ooh, yeah, okay. We've got the volume cluster built a little bit lower. So although we do have the 5-minute POC cluster at 22 quarter, it's making less and less sense to want to short it. They're demonstrating supportive volume underneath price so far, at least. Would you build into longs here on the NASDAQ? I think given that it's pretty obvious the knife hit the floor, below 700s, yeah, I think that's where longs will begin building in. Would it be like 700 exactly? No. It's probably going to have a little bit of a stop run underneath the lows, so, you know, maybe like 695 or something, but down here for sure. See if you can get a jump back to the upside now. We're at 943. We've got the first 15 is mostly behind. Now that we're breaking a little bit lower, we can also look at the cycle. From the cycling perspective, we've got an L3, which is breaking down. L3 is usually like holding L1s, L2s, and that's sort of what we're hovering around at the moment. Obvious problem is the massive level of support this is on the larger picture. But we've got the definitive breakdown, so if we get excess proof, I have no reason to disbelieve the sellers here, at least for another attempt. Nice bear bar. Sellers will be looking for a continuation short off of that move back to the downside. Off of 720.75. Popping back above the L1. Oof, into the L2, very quick jump to the upside. Even faster jump to the upside. We know the L1, L2 area is an obvious zone of interest, but the first intention of the trade was initially wrong. So I'm going to reduce a bit on this continuation down to draw my average up to allow me a bit more flexibility. The objective is still down towards at least through 715. They had a heck of a time down there. So, I mean, that might have to be the first objective, I suppose, but I would like to see them at least shove. We still haven't seen the MACD turn down. The MACD is still trying to churn higher. There's still some obvious reasons as to why I would want to lighten the load on the short. So that's fairly obvious. But now we've got a bit more flexibility with the average a bit further up that allows for sellers to try to build in for a lower high continuation. This previous twin reversal on the 500 tick looks beautiful. They just got to follow through. Nice bear bar, but they got to get under it. Okay. I'm going to reduce one more on that move up. Yep. That'll allow even more flexibility as it encroaches back into the POC cluster at 745. I still like this area for potential shorts now that it's not forcing us to sell at the bottom. But it's just a matter of where the market wants to find a top. 740 volume just shifted. Whoa. Okay. Kind of curious to see what happens here. They shifted the volume down. Now the market's trying to stay... The 740 volume node is going to tell a big story. And a bull bar response off of it, back up? No thanks. I'll just eat the loss on that one. That's not worth it after that. Yeah, and that's why. Nobody's going to stick around when you see a volume shift in the opposite direction. I wanted the sellers to hold it down, and 740, that was the final nail in the coffin. If I am short, that shift in POC and the whole move back up tells me that it doesn't matter if I'm short a million contracts. I need to GTFO. I'm on the wrong side of this. And that's what everyone's doing right now. Why not reverse long? That's a good question. I'm not a huge fan of reversing. Reversing is basically I'm saying that my original analysis of the trade is totally wrong, so much so that I'm going to reverse out of here. When you have situations like this, those would be the times that you'll see me do it. But I don't typically like reversing. After I'm getting stopped out of a trade or accepting a loss on a trade that's been an obvious failure, I like giving myself a little bit of a break. Reversing feels too emotional. It feels like it's one of those gut snap responses that's just going to get you in trouble. And more often than not, it does. Then you just compound your losses. It's not worth it. Just know when you're wrong and get out. I mean, think of how much worse this could have been if you weren't paying attention, you know? That's why it's not worth hanging out. This adds a lot of conviction because now, especially on the 15-minute chart, they failed. Well, I mean, I guess they didn't technically fail the breakout through the lows. They did succeed. Kind of, sort of. So in terms of the overall volume cluster that we've got going on here, looking at the bigger picture and what's going on, 992, the volume is still short from there, and we can still see that those sellers are still in the profit-taking phase. But in the nearer term on this more recent rally down, or more recent drop lower, accumulation building in heavily, in the 750s is where they're trying to build the base. Now that we're back above 750 by a decent amount, not like that little, no, not this little wishy-washy stuff. It's actually gone above it by a decent amount. The next pullback will likely have a lot of shorts running for the hills if they haven't already exited. They should have already exited, but... Jeez, OP. L1 from the daily is the potential support zone that's kind of shaping up here. 15 minutes still has about 10 to go until they close the candle. Caffeine break. Back to the Euro session. We're back above it. They haven't broken a new high yet, but man, you can definitely feel these shorts are under a lot of pressure. So the big thing that we want to keep an eye on now is from top to bottom. Now that we've got proof of the reversal point, that POC zone, if the market wants to come back, is going to be the zone of interest. Did it make a new high? Not quite. The POC's still down here. Okay. Those early longs right out of the gate. If you were looking at the options like we were talking about this morning, this first lift to the upside, now that it's gotten this continuation, is a great profit-taking zone. We're right at the top of the Euro session highs. It's a great ROI on top of the risk. It's hard to not like the zone up here. Monster bull bar continuation to the upside with some candle gapping higher on the S&P. That potentially suggests that the S&P has upside objectives, at least for now, all the way up to 4144.50. Why does that number sound so familiar? 4144.50. That number really rings a bell, and I don't know why. Going crazy. It's all good. More continuation to the upside. First halfway decent pullback that we get now with this new rotation back up, likely down towards the 70s at least. It's going to find buyers wanting to try to kick this back up to a new high. POC shifting to the downside. This is where accumulation buyers are going to be looking to buy on the dip for a retest back to the highs. That 76 volume is going to be an interesting point, but the anticipation is a break above the highs from here. Bit of volume stepping up in the 80s. 76 volume still supporting. Definitely, David. Have a good one. There's the top. Blam! Beautiful. Woohoo! Easy. Easy peasy. Well, not easy, but simple enough. The approach, the mentality is just all these aggressive buyers, what are they going to be doing? They're going to be putting their stops up under what at the time would look like logical points of interest, although in hindsight, they're going to look like they're stupid points of interest. They'll move their stops up underneath these narrow areas where these aren't confirmed swings. This is just sucker stops. I'll buy into those. That's fine with me. Continuation break back to the upside. They're still trying to demonstrate support off 76, but if they want to dip a little bit further, the next zone of interest would make sense back to the 5-minute node at 60. From a scalper's perspective, 66 is going to be the zone of interest. 66, 65. Whoa. Okay, buyers show them back up to the party. Well, we might not make it down there. Do we actually have a physical test of an L1? Yeah, that's what I thought. They missed it that last time around, but they got it this time. Another strong bull bar up. We'll be looking for short-term scalpers to try to get this continuation up off the retest of L1. It'd be preferable to see a physical retest, though. Those are usually a little better. Nice little physical test for a quick secondary bounce. If it is going to be a secondary bounce, typically these buyers respond very fast. They don't typically mess around too much. Not seeing him show up to the party. I'm going to jump ship while it's light. What happened, buyers? Deeper pullback would be the next likely thing then down to the 760s. The higher pullback is obviously not supporting it. Or at least not yet. They're going to need more sideways. These quick little traps underneath the lows definitely help. That might be all it took right there. A quick little wash back underneath the into the 70s maybe. It's too far up here. Oh man, it's hard to see. If we get real close, you can see what they did. They went above the bull bar, and then went boop, snapped everyone out, and then jumped back up again. That's the trap right there. I got everyone out. Now the question is it enough to keep this thing going? If it's not, that's a big clue. They did make a new high. But the high was a twin reversal. That's tough. Still have candle gapping to the upside. As far as the S&P is concerned, any pullback below the most recent bull bar is going to be a viable zone of interest. 3150, 3050, 2950 in that zone. Gold, wow, gold ripping to the upside. Just screaming. So again, I mean, we already know why. The shorts tried getting the WACD earlier, didn't work, took this opportunity to get out of break even, and all the shorts are gone. Nobody's left holding the market down. Yeah, maybe I should start reversing, jeez. Euro's still at the bottom of the range, and we're building that bottom-weighted POC 2210. 20, pause, 210 is the zone of interest, and accumulation volume all the way down. They're still showing pretty good. Kind of curious to see what that 1 minute chart looks like on the faster perspective. So bulls are continuing to hold the L1s to the upside, although it is very jerky, messy up here. No pullback yet on the S&P. Euro's still... Ugh, man, we've got a massive double bottom on the euro at 2120. With an undertow the whole way. All right, Euro longs do break above another, or Euro, the NASDAQ longs do break above another new high. S&P still no pullback. Not quite to the gap objective yet. We've got some room. So far, the average longs seem to have built up around the 13,780s on this pullback move from earlier. $10 o'clock, top of the hour. There's no news at 10 o'clock, but 5-minute bar also showing some potential gapping to the upside, although it's very early. The candle just started. Market pulling back again. L1 buyers are going to be hovering right around that VVP. CAD interest rate 0. Seems like it, I mean, it might have thrown the market around a little bit. Gold is the one that's getting the impact, though. Even crude a little bit. Buyers dipping back into this pullback. L1s will still be hovering up here, but 780 was the larger point of interest. All right, getting close. A little bit of a flush underneath the 80s honestly wouldn't hurt my feelings. I'd like to see 79. It couldn't even hit 80 yet. Bulls stepping back up to the plate. Still hovering around this kind of L1-ish pullback. Big wick on the bottom. First bounce, usually not successful, but can be. Usually takes the market a couple tries. Pretty obvious diverging top on the NASDAQ as well. Scalpers might be able to utilize a quick little back flush to 787. You can kind of see that candle gapping between those little bull bars there on the 500 tick. $32.75, $31.75, $30.75. That's a pretty nasty bear bar on the top. See if that can procure a deeper pullback, or if they're just going to trap it and churn higher. Buyers kind of playing around with this this higher low retest. You can see a ton of volume stepping up on that one orange bar kind of creeping across the screen there on the volume profile at 790. Kind of curious. Yes, we know the overall volume. Ooh, nice little dip back to this POC cluster. See what the response is. That's not good. Closing underneath it. Oh, okay. Well, maybe back above it. Bear bar on the top of that 5-minute on the S&P would suggest further momentum down. I'm still comfortable with 32.75, but I wouldn't want to go further up than that. Now the market's trying to treat 780 as a bit of resistance, but it's not breaking down. Could just be a trap. Remember, this is a deep pullback zone. If buyers want to accumulate contracts, they got to have sellers sell it to them. And if it does want to dip a little bit lower than the 760s, that 5-minute volume node is a zone of interest for sure. And there's a little VVP underneath it at 57.50. See if you can get a trap underneath the 72s. Nice little snap underneath the low. Buyers looking for a continuation pulse back up towards at least the 780s. $780s, $790s. Nice little base that's being built here to absorb those stops. There we go. Nice pop up to the Euro session highs for the first objective. Also right around those 780s. Now we got to see them churn through this zone. It's a big spot, these Euro session highs. Barely any ticks on the candle. Great bull bar. POC shifted up, though. Did you see that pop down 78 quarter? Got to see the buyers carry this through. That's a beautiful potential trap on the lows, but where's the follow through? Get above volume. POC shifting higher again. Oof. Go back up. There you go. Kinda. I'm going to jump ship here. I don't like this at all. They're having such a heck of a time getting through the 780s. If I had more contracts, then sure, I'd hold one more maybe, but there's some resistance here. We already know this is the primary objective. Secondary objective, 790s if it can make it through. Very nice dip buy. Now, the next thing that I want to look for, and the reason why I'm exiting along the way up, is because very frequently the market will have an inside pullback and then a continuation back up again. I'd rather take the short-term area of interest and then look to reload on a pullback. A little bit lower. Get below 75. Let's see. NinjaTrader 8 has crashed, leaving me with no charts. Tried importing the backup, however, NinjaTrader won't let me choose anything other than configuration files and databases. Let me choose. Let me see here. Well, I mean, give it a shot and see what happens. If it's already messed up, it's not going to get worse, right? So, I mean, worst case, we just have to do a reinstall, I guess, but... POC shifting back down 78.5. Buyers trying to pick up this dip here. I like this zone for an accumulation lift back to the upside. I don't think this move's going to stick around for too long. Yeah. First objective on that quick little spike to volume for a scalp. Punch through. A little bit of a dip, that's fine. Buyers will buy the dip. BTFD underneath the previous bull bar. See it go back up again. There we go. Nice churn through the top. For God's sake. Get the spam garbage out of here. Report. Goodbye. GTFO out of my chat with that garbage. More continuation back to the upside. Back to the top of the L1. Oh, they're having a hard time. They got to get through. The top of this L1, we're right back into that previous node. Bit of a fist fight. POC shifting up. Buyers got to stay above that 85. Possibility that sellers just liquidated and went long. '85's the key. The top of this L1's not looking great. Oof. All right, I'm out. I don't like that at all. It might just be a trap before the final pulse to the upside, but it's right back at the earlier profit-taking zone, and I'm not about to let that turn into a loss. No, my Pokemon card. not my Mega Hatterene. I don't know. My son gave it to me. It's this giant, like, way larger than it normally would be Pokemon card. Anyway, going on 10:13. We're still a little bit later in the morning session, but so far, aside from the fist fight a bit on that previous POC, it's been pretty straightforward what's been going on here. Nice continuation of the upside. Yeah, as far as I know, that was the plan. That's the one that I've got on the, in the books at least. Double check in there though to make sure, because I wasn't sure what was going on with because I figured I would just talk to you today about it, but because I saw that you put another one in. And we had already talked on the other one for a different date, and then the new one had a different, so I didn't know what was going on. So I've just got the one. So update as necessary, but yeah. That's correct, yeah. 4:30. That's the goal at least, but again, you know, if it happens to get pushed, then it'll just be 5. Deeper pullback now, back under the Euro session. And that's a little bit of a problem because we saw the POC shift up at the highs, 785, and now we're definitively below it. And that's also the larger POC at 780, I believe. Yeah, that's got all of them. Sheesh. Still haven't had a pullback on the S&P. Possible selling that's going on above the previous bull bar. That's making me less inclined to want to buy this dip, totally honest. And it's also getting later in the morning session. I kind of rather wait to see what happens when they pull back to that area and show potential support. All right, bulls, that's a really nice second long from the bottom. Buyers churning up once, sellers trying to take it back below the Euro session, failing and churning back up. The problem, obviously, is they're buying directly into volume. So This either has to move quickly and get out of here up, or it's going to fail. But it's a good start. It's a good shot. Hey, maybe they get it. Really nice buying going on underneath the previous bull bars, right at Euro session highs again. Still showing support around the L2s. Let's mark it up just to confirm. Yep. Right underneath the trap lows, right into the L2s. I mean, it's pretty straightforward stuff. These higher lows, everything, but if they start breaking through the bottom, then 760, L3s, possibly even L4s. I mean, that's where things get a little bit carried away. Right now, price is still staying under volume. That POC is top weighted. On the 15-minute in the bigger perspective, we obviously know that buyers bought the low. We were talking about those at the beginning of the day, buying directly into the open. That led to that big rally to the upside. A lot of them taking profit, understandably so. Buyers failing and rolling back down. Kind of curious. 3-press wedge bottom here. Looks like a really nice bounce. Possible wedge top. What are your thoughts on Doge? I think Doge still looks okay. But come back down here. But Doge, I mean, right now they're showing supportive volume coming in, which is a great sign. Buyers are trying to demonstrate support above these highs and get it going up and all of that fun stuff. But that volume note, I mean, we're resting directly on top of it at 31 cents. If it slides underneath it and then pops back up, I mean, we might just turn around here for a little while. But given the way that this has been moving and every time that it's gone under it, it immediately pops back up. I have to assume that there is a metric ton of volume underneath 31 that's just gobbling it up. So if it does dip a little bit lower, nice little VVP void fill at around 28.5 cents. Otherwise, major zone would be like 25 again. But we're sitting right on top of this volume node that's trying to get it to go up. My concern is that we're going to be stuck here for a good week to potentially month, is at least historically that's what Doge likes to do. After it breaks an all-time high installs with a double top. And then it breaks out and goes up another 550%. So I'm okay with that. That's fine. It's DCA in. I can't believe Neo's over 100 still. That's crazy. S&P going bull engulfing. Taking my 3173 and done. Awesome job. Great work. Phenomenal bounce off the lows. We still haven't hit the objective from the index point of view. At least for the S&P, it still has candle gap objecting a little bit further up. So might not be done. But it definitely feels like it's coming under some pressure here. That wedge definitely fits better. Can we get the retest on 760? Maybe a quick little flush down to 55.50, something like that. Looking from the top down as far as what buyers are doing, you can see we've got accumulation volume. They're trying to build a base, but right now they're underwater. Their average is at 78. That's not a good sign. So although it's in a favorable area to be a buyer, we have to understand that the elephants, the ones that are moving the markets, the infinite money cheaters, they're long up here at 78. They're in an unfavorable position right now. We have to see them come back into favor before they're going to continue to support this long. When you measure wedges and or 3-press tops and lows, do you include wicks or is it just what fits? Okay, so there's going to be a difference in answer depending on context. I know, right? What a shock. John said context. Can hear the face palms from across the states. But the thing is, when I'm looking at the overall move, when I'm looking at, as an example, a 5-minute chart. A 5-minute chart is the same on everybody's computer. I mean, the close might be a difference by like a tick, but everybody's 5-minute chart is going to look nearly identical at almost all times, right? 99.9% of the time, they're all the same. So when I'm measuring up trend lines and wedges and everything on time-based charts, it is always off of wick highs. I completely disregard bodies, closes, opens, none of that. Does not matter to me. It's always wicks because algos don't care about the stuff on the inside. They can't figure out what gray area is. It's ones and zeros. So I will measure directly off of the highs and lows only. And I am incredibly picky when I'm talking about swing highs and swing lows. So what I mean is, if I'm going back and I'm looking at a swing high and swing low, and I'm trying to figure out, hey, maybe this looks like a viable trend. This is a swing high, and I know trend lines will get drawn off of that. Obviously, it was immediately invalidated. But that's what I mean. Like, if I wanted to draw a trend line, I could very viably use that as a swing high. Because I know algos will. Now, from a tick-based time frame, a tick-based time frame is something a little bit different. Those are based on incoming trades. So tick charts, volume charts, those are the ones that are going to have a bit more of a psychological profile built in. So with that in mind, that's a little bit of a different context. I'll go best fit on that, which is what you'll see more often than not over here. I'm still pretty stickler. You'll notice the first wedge I drew was off of the first obvious swing low. I started my drawing there. It looks like a relatively innocuous swing. Like why would you pick that? That's the first obvious swing before all of this congestion. In algo, that's all they're going to look at, right? They're going to look at that and say, hey, that's a swing. Ding, ding, ding. Hey, David Arrington, welcome. Welcome, welcome. You get a Pikachu. Hooray. Make sure to, if you haven't already, grab the links. All the info should be sent to you, but that way you'll be able to join up on the Discord chat, and we'll get you all taken care of from there. So something like this, my immediate drawing will start from there. That's my objective. And you'll see, that's the responsiveness. Now, I could even start over here, but none of those really line up. Once it started breaking, I mean, it just didn't fit. There was still some responsiveness, but just not much, right? So, joined the full VIP last night. Welcome, welcome, my friend. Want to set up a one-on-one sometime soon? Definitely. Shoot me an email, jhb@ssftg, and we'll take a look at the overall scheduling. I believe you sent me an email about it before. Most of the scheduling for one-on-ones are set out like maybe a day or two. It doesn't really have to go out very far. So just shoot me an email with what schedule you're looking at. Typically, our calls are in the afternoon. I'll have to look at availability, but if you give me an idea of what your schedule looks like, then I can just shoot you what we've got, and we can go from there. But we'll get you set up. What's going on when the POC shifts? Very good question. So again, I know, context. I put a sticky note, put it on the charts, put it everywhere, context, tattoo it, whatever. But when we're looking at a POC shift, very, very importantly, you'll notice I build a story up to the POC. I don't just draw over here and say, okay, that's where we are. I start from like yesterday and work my way forward. So I have context. I'm building my story, so I have an understanding of what's going on. So that way, when I place the volume on top of my story, it can either confirm my story or tell me that I'm an idiot, one of the two, and then I can realign. Either way, though, that's why I like utilizing those POCs, because what the assumption is, again, the POCs are the assumption that they're traders just like me. I know that's not the case. I understand. I'm not stupid. Well, it depends on the topic. But I understand, right? Not every trader in the world is going to be trading identically to me. That would be completely nonsense. But based on the assumptions while I'm building a story, that's what I have to assume. because my assumptions are what I'm building the story off of, right? And that's how you can be wrong on a trade. You read the story wrong. So you have to recalibrate. You're on the wrong page. Flip the page. Go to the next one, right? Side note, S&P is at the major candle gap objective. Jeez, oh, Pete, look at this thing. They got that final trap on the bottom and they juked everyone out. That's all they needed. But when a POC shifts, the assumption is like right here, when the POC is building up, and we're hovering, and the POC is here, and the market is spending probably 65, 70% of the time underneath that POC, my assumption then is that those are sellers. And those sellers are trying to get the market to rotate down. I don't know why, and again, you can derive context from that as to why they may be, maybe Euro session highs. I don't know. I don't really care. Just for the sake of example, they're building volume there. I know they're building volume there. My assumption is that they are sellers. So I want to assume that when put myself in their shoes, right? That's kind of the mentality of, okay, I'm a seller. Right, I'm a seller. I've got the infinite money cheats. I can do that Goldman Sachs style, whatever. So I'm just going to pretend that they're trading exactly like me, and I am them. I am short from here. Right? Let's play a little make believe. What would you do if you were short from here? The market goes up above, goes back down. Average doesn't change. They're still short. Didn't do anything. Goes back up, goes back down, goes underneath it. Average doesn't change. They're obviously still short. They haven't done anything. They haven't repositioned. They haven't done anything differently. Comes back down again. Comes back down again, right? What did we see in the short term? And that's why I was measuring from the top to the bottom. What did we start seeing? Accumulation phasing. And then it kind of phased out a little bit for that little blow off, that little trippy-trappy stop run on the lows, good old NASDAQ, and then reverse back up to the highs. So when we see all of this volume demonstrating that sellers should be maintaining their strength down, and all of a sudden this happens, and you can see in the micro phase, they're very fast to respond. As soon as this jerked up off the lows, they bailed very fast. Like they spent zero time, zero hesitation. That's their average and they're short. That's their break even. Get me out of this thing, right? They did not want to see this bounce off of the lows, especially not that strong. So when it invalidated them, went above their break evens and came back and gave them a chance to get out at break even, I don't know, you tell me. Looks like they took it, given the response. So those shorts who were short, again, context. I have to assume they were short given what was going on. We're at the Euro session highs. They're trying to get it to go lower, and they failed. When they failed, look what happened. It's pretty straightforward what happened. It's just gone. So that's why it's so important when the POC shifts. Because if we see that the sellers are trying, and they're trying, and they're trying, and they're trying, and then all of a sudden, the POC shifts down here, whoa, wait a minute, what? Why did that do that? Right? Why now the volume is spending its time above the POC? That's demonstrating bulls. It's a totally different scenario. So when the POC shifts, it can throw kind of a monkey wrench or a spanner in the works, if you will, for those of you over the pond. That's what it's doing. It kind of messes things up a little bit, and you have to recalibrate. And a lot of time that POC shift is the recalibration from like a fund manager standpoint. Big cash flow, right? That's them repositioning. You're just kind of following the breadcrumbs, if you will. Next week, maybe? Yeah, that's totally fine. Yep. Typically, like I said, they're in the afternoons. Next week, shoot me an email. We'll do it over there. I'm not gonna do it over the stream. But shoot me an email. We'll get you covered from there, and we'll get it all scheduled. But next week should be pretty straightforward. So now that we've built up that context, this would be a good example of, right, if I were looking at this with that assumption, this move down here, I have to assume that those were what? Buyers. We move down to the lows of the range. We're at a massive zone of interest, and we have accumulation volume moving down. So I have to assume they're buyers. It slid underneath them and then immediately came back. That's why it's so important to see, what do they do when they come back? Do they get out at break even? If they do, that's a big clue. They did not. It shot above them. So here again, put yourself in their shoes, right? You may not be able to trade like them, but at least we can see where the elephants are going to slam their feet down. We have an average here. If they are long from here and the market migrates back above this decisively, what do you think they're going to do? I can tell you one thing they're not going to let this do, go negative again. That's not going to happen. Well, I mean, it might, but it's not going to happen with them in it. As soon as this starts moving back up to the highs, it's assumed then that these buyers are still long. So let's see, what does the volume tell us as we project this whole thing forward? Right? What does this tell us as we project this whole thing forward? We have profit taking as it's going above the highs. Of course we are. So now we know that these longs were long. They were under some serious pressure, but it made it down the measured move, went back above their break-evens. They did not exit at break-even. Or if they did, we could even see anything like that around their break-even. There's nothing decisive that happened there. So they didn't exit at break-even. Rolled back up into their profit territory, back to the highs of the Euro session. We can see they took profit. Went back down, went back above the highs. They start taking profit above those highs. Pulls back, goes back above the highs. We see more profit taking. They're taking profit above all these tops. Now we have context. So we know that the longs from down here won the fight. The shorts are possibly stuck. We also know that they're possibly building. We might spend some time up here and build a third node. Remember, I love accumulation in threes. It's got time. Could be in the very early stages of a range. Big pullback off the top, too. Lots of profit taking. Look at that spike in volume up there. What price was that? 815? 814? 815. It's just, wow. And here again, in the short term, accumulation. Sellers selling above the highs. Possibly a three-press wedge top. Who knows? I don't know why they're selling up there, but I can see they are. That doesn't necessarily mean this is the top and it's going to go falling through the bottom, but it does tell me that if I'm long, I might want to consider lightening the load a little bit before the pullback. Anyway, going into 10:30, let's do final call for questions and we'll wrap it up. Great day of trading so far. A little bit of choppy, sloppy in the beginning, but not too bad, all things considered. Major objective has been completed on the S&P with the approach and test of the candle gap. Yeah, I did hear Venmo. I didn't look in the Venmo app yet, so I don't know personally. But I did hear that they were supposedly supporting purchasing and selling of Bitcoin, Ethereum, and Litecoin. I think those three. I haven't personally looked though, so I can't confirm. But I saw the news lines, or the headlines at least. Oh, Doge on the hourly is looking incredible if this gets a bull bar back to the upside. Look at this thing. You can almost see the trap happening underneath that previous bull bar, closed strong bull. Woo! Oh, lordy. Got some resistance up here, obviously, at around the 34, 35 cent range. But if they can get back above that, there's no volume until 38. And then there's nothing. Let's go back to the larger pullback. Yeah, we're still at the same POC area. All right. Well, I'm not seeing any other questions coming in, so that's going to do it for today. As per the usual, today is recorded. You can just, I believe you can just pause it and rewind it and do whatever you want to do from there on the YouTube side of things. But you can watch that back at your leisure. Otherwise, if I miss any questions, though, feel free to shoot me an email, jhb@ssftg.com. I'll get you covered from there. Mentioned traps under the lows a few times. Is that a trap for sellers or for buyers? It's trapping buyers. So again, context. If you have a move to the upside, right, their stops are going to likely go where? Right? If they're trying to trail their stops, they're probably going to put them underneath the swings. Stupid spot to put them initially. But eventually what you end up getting is a pattern that we call the TUL2, where you get this deeper dive down, which is nothing more than accumulation buyers. It stops all of those earlier longs out, right? So it's stopping them out of the move so that they're missing it. Because buyers, if they are there, will accumulate all of those stops and get it to roll right back up again. Remember, these are the infinite money traders, right? These are the JP Morgans. These are the guys that can just print more if they want to. So buying underneath these lows, they're assuming that they have to get a lot of contracts filled, and they can't just hit market on 1,000. I mean, they could just hit market on 1,000 contracts, but it wouldn't go very well. The market would go nuts. So what they have to do instead is hunt for these areas where there's going to be, or assumed to be, a large amount of volume. So they can kind of mask their orders behind the screens, right? They can mask it in a flurry of stop runs. And everybody looks at it, it's like, oh, no, it was a stop run, right? Oh yeah, no, of course. Well, if it was a stop run, then why did it stop? Right? It was a stop absorption. It stopped dead in its tracks, and they accumulated it like it was going out of style. A stop run will be a VVP voided out break like we have here. That's a stop run. A stop accumulation is that. They gobbled it all up. So that's what I mean by stops in that case. They'll go under, they'll trap everybody out who's trying to trail this move up. Because realistically, if you went long down here, or here, or here, or anywhere in here, and the market starts just ripping to the upside, you don't have any swings to put your stop under. So you're just kind of like, well, what do I do? Where do I put my stop? We've got a little minor swing here. They've got a little guy right there. And then an obvious one underneath these. You notice where my buy orders were? Not to be vindictive or anything, but stop absorption. If it were a stop run, it would have kept going. Anyway, that's going to do it. Enjoy. I hope you had a great day of trading. Rest up, and we will see you all tomorrow morning, all right? Enjoy, and yeah, have a good one. We'll talk to you all then. Thanks. Bye.